Hello everyone, Ken and Louie here, and it is the end of 2021 going into 2022. So, with that being said, Happy New Year everybody! Hopefully you've had a chance to meet up with family and friends and enjoy hopefully a few days off from work or school or what have you. So, this is Dungeon Siege Legends of Arana. It is a very old game, but I'm going to be playing this in the background, so as you can see by the graphics, it's not... You can tell that it's an old game. It's not very visually impressive. And also, I do have the game muted simply because I didn't want to spend the extra time to try to find a good balance between the game volume and voice volume, because that can take some time depending on how things go. So 2021 was a very interesting year, to say the least, because when I think about 2021, I can't really think of what even happened during that year for me personally, because it just felt like I didn't really do anything, or at least do anything like really noteworthy. And when I looked at my record of what I uploaded in 2021 for my YouTube channel, it turned out to be pretty accurate, actually. Because there was, like, I didn't finish any YouTube projects, or at least not really, because I finished Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet last year and did like an extras video in 2021. When I say last year, I'm probably referring to 2020, like, just because I should have recorded this December 31st, but I didn't, so it is what it is. And I did start Alien Isolation, but didn't really get very far in it because of whatever reason. And so, yeah, whenever I think about that year, it just didn't really feel like I did anything. And there is kind of a good reason for that. Me and my family moved, so that took like 4 to 5 months of moving back and forth, and also slowly getting a lot of stuff out of our old house, and of course moving it. So that took a long time, to say the least, and this is the first time me and my family, like, made a major move throughout my entire life. So, for me, I have been out of the house, living with my grandma for quite a while when I was in college, as well as when I was working over 2 years ago now. And so, it isn't the only house that I've lived at, but at the same time, I never really fully moved into that house, and I pretty much only had, like, my computer and, like, a suitcase worth of clothes, or a basket worth of clothes, in order to choose from for that. So I never really, like, fully moved in and had, like, here where I have my own bedroom set and everything, and so that was a very big change. And then for my parents, they've been living in the same house for, I think, at least 30 years, if not longer, so they of course accumulated a ton of stuff over that time, including stuff that was mine as well as my siblings' stuff, in tubs and everything. So looking through all of that, as well as just the process of moving, it was definitely a process, to say the least. So that took like 4 to 5 months worth of time, and because of how hectic that was, I don't think I really wanted to commit to recording anything during that time because of that. 17 armor. So there was that, and then on top of all of that, just looking through some of these, that's okay, but because of how hectic all that was, so that was definitely a big factor. And then on top of that, me and my family got sick right after we got moved. It was like a week or two later, and then we got sick. So, of course, I wasn't willing to record anything while I was sick that required commentary. So, yeah, that was pretty much the second half of the year for me. It was just that whole process. And then, besides that, I made a second YouTube channel that was more focused on one game in particular, and that was a game that I saw that I would be playing for a long time to come, and I thoroughly enjoyed the game, as well as that there's a little bit more freedom in making original content. And what I mean by that is that doing stuff that other people haven't done before. Like, there's a little bit more opportunity to do that. And that was the Arknights game. So I made a second YouTube channel focused on Arknights at the very beginning of June, I do believe. So it was like June 1st or something. And so when I first made it, I had tried to do pretty regular uploads, so I did kind of focus on that definitely a lot more. And I think it was partly because it was somewhat easier for me to do. And also, to some extent, I kind of was curious to see how it would go and everything. So I've been kind of juggling that a little bit, of having two different channels, and I have said multiple times that I do definitely want to get back into recording Let's Plays again. Clobber Shield? Huh. And as you can see here, in this Dungeon Siege game, I am playing a ranger character. What is this? 2 combat magic? Okay. And that is terrible at this level. And then for Alien Isolation, like, it just kind of felt like I needed to be in the mood for it in order to record it. So that was kind of another thing, was for that specifically, was that I started a project that, I don't know, I did enjoy it, or at least a lot more than I thought I did, but at the same time, though, like, it just doesn't really feel like a game that I can just jump into whenever I feel like it. Or at least that's how I feel. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm not really sure when I'll get back to it. I'm kind of wanting to do something a little bit different. And maybe to some extent that is another reason why I did start another YouTube channel, was to have something a little bit different, like, hey, if I don't feel like recording Let's Plays, then I can kind of refresh myself by thinking up of Arknight's silly things to do, you know. But yeah, I've definitely been focusing more on that channel more this year than this one. So with that being said, going into my plans, so for 2022, I'm definitely planning on doing Let's Plays again, because I thoroughly enjoyed doing them. Even though that, like, from a viewership perspective, oh, I can do a video on Arknights, and if it's unique enough, or if just frankly YouTube promotes it enough, because YouTube does whatever it feels like, I would get a lot more traction than just doing a Let's Play of games that people have already done. But at the same time, they feel... I really like the feel of uniqueness at the same time, especially on blind runs, like recording my first impressions of things is really nice, because then I can go back to it and then be like, hey, this is what I thought of this at the time, and everything. And since I have commentary, like, that's pretty much the main reason why I do commentary on Let's Plays, is not because I think it, like, necessarily enhances the viewership experience, but to kind of put, like, a signature on it, so to speak, of thinking, hey, this is something I made, and everything. So, crystal boots. Interesting. Yeah, this game has a really cool looking, it's not really a set, but like a style of armor, the crystal armor. It looks really cool, but it's a really rare thing, and the armor values, by the time you get all of the crystal armor pieces, they're kind of obsolete. So they're just kind of like for visual flair. So yeah, another thing about YouTube is that since I don't monetize anything, I mean, I'm not making money off of this anyway. It was, and I never planned to. It was something I went into that to stay productive while also, you know, hopefully creating some cool stuff at the same time. So speaking of Let's Plays, I am thinking about doing, well, I am planning on doing Black Mesa as soon as I get into things, because another thing that I've mentioned multiple times is that I still do not have a bedroom, and I'm still sleeping on the couch. So yeah. So that's definitely still a thing. And I'm not expecting that to be done for another 3 months, so yes. And nothing has been done on it so far, really, since we ripped up the old carpet because we're gonna redo the carpet, and that was basically where it left off. So yeah. And we're in the ruined city. Woo! And one thing my parents have been really wanting is for me to look for job opportunities, which I agree. Like, both from a productivity standpoint as well as a mental standpoint, I think that would be really good for me to try to find something that I can do with my physical limitations. Although the really funny thing and ironic thing is that even though that, like, I'm not really having, like, I don't mind actually sleeping on the couch or anything, but the thing is that for some reason, I think from a mental health standpoint, it would be so much better if I actually had my room first before worrying about that. I mean, maybe it's just an excuse, which in some ways it probably is, but at the same point, having a house in limbo for so long and not seeing an end anytime soon to that, I don't think that really helps. And also the fact that I would need to be available to help my parents with moving stuff around and helping with my bedroom whenever we get around to it and whatnot. So yeah, that's something that I kind of want to do first with that specifically. But yeah, so the next plans are to do Black Mesa relatively soon, and I think just waiting until the Christmas season was done was a good idea, because for me and my family, we do a lot of, we usually have a family get together, and so that is obviously pretty hectic as well. So wanting to record a Let's Play with all of that going on, I thought it was better just to wait until past January 1st, and so all of that is done, and then also it's the start of a brand new year, so, and hopefully this year will be better than last year in terms of what I'm able to do, both in my life as well as on the YouTube Let's Plays things. So just quickly going over just like my thoughts on what happened, like from a world stage perspective, for a lack of a better phrase. So in the United States where I live, if you live in Europe or anywhere in the world really, but Europe is just what comes to mind straight away, is that in the United States we got a brand new president, and well, throughout all of my life, I have never seen inflation happen this rapidly within a single year. So basically, in the US anyway, the prices of everything have pretty much gone up by at least like 20%. So that means stuff like milk, eggs, and other things that people usually use have gone up by around 20%. So like milk, before this president, it was like maybe $2.50, and now it's like $3 minimum to get a gallon of milk. And then gasoline has gone up just insanely high, percentage-wise. So for a gallon of gas, before 2020 or before 2021, it was around like $1.90 where I was living. And afterward, it went up to over $3. And it still is over $3. So, I mean, I guess it's not really going up more than that within the recent months. But at the same time, though, how does it, like, all of that changed, like, after the, basically before the inauguration, it was like $1.90. And then after the inauguration, like, gas prices went, where I live, or where I used to live at least, and where I live now, it's basically the same, or maybe even a little bit more pricey on average. But regardless, it went from $1.90 to like $2.50 per gallon of gas within like a week of the new president being in the office. So, all I know is that he did sign a bunch of executive orders, and that probably did a lot in that regard. So, yeah, let's just say from, like, that's kind of another thing too, is that when looking, like, the thought of looking for a job is like, I'm only in my 20s right now, and I already see the value of the money that I have and the money that I would earn be worth, 20% less, and in terms of gasoline, like 60% less, or 50% less. Like, I don't know, that's just like one of the most depressing things, like, when people are like, oh, well, accumulate a lot of wealth and all this stuff, and it's like, in some ways, it's like when, within a single year, all of your money that you have accumulated just lost 20% value. Like, what's gonna happen next year? And everything. And then we also have, like, supply chain shortages in various areas of the United States, and somehow there has been more COVID deaths within 2021 than 2020, even though that our previous president had to research the virus and everything, with with having limited knowledge of it until they were able to do a lot of testing. And yet a vaccine was created and everything, and yet somehow there's more COVID deaths in this year than last year. So it's just one of those things that is interesting. But, yeah, that it's just been a wild year, like, from just a personal standpoint as well as a semi-political standpoint. Like, I usually don't like to go into politics. I try to state over what is the word? Overlaying the general changes in the world, if that makes sense, of where I live, without going into far specifics. So all I can say is that is the things that I've seen, so you can come to your own conclusions on that. And me and Alex have, or me and Warmonger have played a lot of Dungeon Siege 1 here. And for some reason, a blue screen deleted my mage character, so I'm remaking my mage character. Because we were playing, his character was a pure combat mage, and I was making a pure nature mage. So this character is kind of one that I decided to make to get some items to help me get my nature mage back to the point where he was, and then also being able to play by myself without getting over leveled and whatever. But it is really nostalgic to play a game that this was made in like 2003. So, and this is the expansion campaign that I am playing right now. So there is that. And also, I've noticed that, like, pretty much every new game that comes out has to have, like, some sort of live service or something that requires the internet. And isn't it kind of nice to finally play a game that you don't necessarily need internet for? Or you don't need to sign, like, an end-user license agreement? Even though that the game is single-player. Like, even single-player games these days, it's like, oh, we signed this thing in order to play our single-player game. Oh, and it requires internet because of, you know, whatever. And it's like, you know what? Let me play my single-player game, please. Without needing to worry about all that stuff. That would be nice. So... And then also, me and Warmonger are planning to figure out a better build for my character a better character build for the next league in Path of Exile. So in terms of Path of Exile stuff, I am planning on continuing to play, so don't worry about that. And hopefully I'll make a build that is tanky enough so that I can actually play it without worrying about white mobs and whatnot. And maybe I could make a little bit more content on that. But definitely the quality of life that they added in the previous patch of Path of Exile, the last league in Path of Exile, has definitely reinvigorated my interest in the game. Because if they didn't do that, it was kind of to the point where, like, you have to spend so much time, like, doing this sort of tedious stuff in order to, like, get to the, like, not really even endgame, like, to get to yellow and red maps. It was just, like, incredibly long and tedious, and now they made it so that it isn't really that bad at all. So I'm definitely looking forward to making a better character. Because I keep making glass cannon characters, and that's just not really going to work for me anymore. Because then I pretty much, like, can't really... It's much harder to have fun because I'm constantly losing experience. Which I still don't understand why that's in the game, other than because why not type of thing. But yeah, that's kind of what my reflection of 2021 was. It was a year that had a lot of change for me and my family with moving. On the world stage, basically everything either stayed the same or got worse, arguably. I mean, it obviously depended on which state you lived in, because some of those governors, like, really want to keep their mandates for the virus. So yeah, depending on where you lived, basically determined, you know, how many mandates were there, and whether or not you would need to worry about those things. But overall, I would say, for the most part, like, everything stayed the same, if not got worse. So, so as a joke that I said to my family last night is, welcome to the third year of 2020. So with that, I know that, I mean, pretty much, like, when I reflect on each year, like, that's just, you know, asking for a rambly video. So so if you were able to stick with it to the end and basically play it, you know, while you're having a meal, or while you're playing a game, or something along those lines, to have this in the background, because, I mean, Dungeon Siege is exciting and all, but actually watching it is probably not the most exciting thing. Because it's one thing to... This is one of those games that... Playing it and watching it... Like, watching it, it's probably really boring, but if you're playing it, it can be pretty good. So, with that being said, though, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022, and thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day, and hopefully I can get back to recording Let's Play projects sooner rather than later.